Can you confirm if you can see?
Yes.
Okay. So just continuing, I just have one slide and I'll take you through the product and show you, how the whole thing works. But these are some of, I've just bucketed them into 6 topics. So I'll just give you a quick overview of, how it's organized, how it works. Then second, I'll talk about, the ease of use on the whole platform, which is why we are able to implement faster, make decisions faster, and make the adoptability faster. Third, I'll take you through, the traditional, some examples of the TRM features and the apps, the physical supply chain, inventory cog, it's just to show you, the depth and the comprehensiveness of the system. Then we'll talk about risk, some apps that are, focused purely on risk. Then we'll talk about the risk and monitoring framework. And then I'll end with 1 or 2 examples of how these apps can be easily extended by our partners and our implementation teams. Right, so moving on to the demonstration itself. So just a quick check here, Shisheda, even you can confirm, is there a bit of a lag or it's coming up smoothly?
It seems fine to me.
That's
Okay.
good.
But yeah.
Okay, looking good. Okay. So that's our platform, all native cloud, native mobile. Today, my purpose is to do a 20-25 minutes quick overview, trying to cover as much, so that it's relevant and, it gives you some time to think about how, how you can use the system forward. But if there are specific questions, happy to take them in the end and run through some specifics. And also, like I said, happy to do a mobile dashboard demo sometime later. But all of this is native cloud, native mobile. I don't have a single software on my machine except for the browser. Again, the biggest advantage it has offered our customers is accessibility from anywhere, right? Remote teams, traveling teams. So it just makes it extremely easy for people to access. Each of these apps that you see here, solves a particular business problem. So there's a variety here, some related to finance, which is cash flow, maybe reconciliation, trade finance. You'll find there are a couple on the risk side, which is, regulatory, VaR, option valuation. And then there are a lot of TRM and physical contract, deal contract capture, etc. apps on the other side, right? But this is, the typical apps used by trading and originating organizations, but this is not limited. We do have a very, comprehensive app store to which we continuously keep adding apps, as we hear from the market, as we hear from the customers. What this has really, the benefit that it has brought to our customers is, especially, Prem was mentioning REG, they started off with a position mark to market app, but then, when they looked at our app store, they found the option valuation, they found the hedge accounting. So, you can just come here, take a look at the other apps that are available from ICA as we keep adding, take a quick demo and, just add on another app to the existing suite on the existing platform suite, right? So this has brought about, a lot of scalability, very easy upgrades, and without having to re-implement the whole, project again, we are able to constantly add functionality to our existing landscape of our customers, right? So that's a big benefit. Now, each of these apps, like I said, since they solve a particular business problem, the data that comes into these apps can either come from our own TRM systems, which I will, cover as my third topic, but it can also come from outside. So we have made ourselves, we've split these apps from the monolithic CTRM systems into, little chunks where the data itself can come from any system, a spreadsheet, or from our data partners or from other TRM systems. Just to show you how that framework works, if I go here and go to our connectors. So we have a lot of pre-built connectors. Class, 3 broad categories if you see. So some of these are focused on market data. So if you see Thomson Reuters now called Refinitiv, There's market data that comes in from CME and ICE, trades come in from CME and ICE, some examples here. We also, for some of our, weather related projects that we've done with the Coffee Board in India, we've consumed a lot of data from Aware, which is a weather service, AccuWeather and Aware. Recently, we've also connected a lot of, CRM related information from Salesforce. And of course, we do connect to a lot of, registries, trade registries for compliance purpose. Now, the advantage of these pre-built connectors, just to show you, so if you've already pre-built and we are connected to these third-party systems, it is as easy as, during installation, as easy as, editing, putting your subscription ID and save the subscription ID. What this does is immediately, the APIs are already pre-built. It pulls all the data and the data is ready for consumption. Now, two broad categories in which data can be consumed. Either you can just consume the data and, create some dashboards for yourselves, or they feed into our apps for, further processing like bar or PNL calculations or for option valuations, etc. Right? Now, that was an example of third-party connector. We've also connected to a lot of ERP systems. It typically happens in case of accounting or in case of manufacturing as well. This is, just an example, but we do have the whole suite here where we've connected to systems like QuickBooks, SAP, JD Edwards, Oracle. And last but not the least, there are always some spreadsheets that could be lying in the system. For example, your broker sends your, spreadsheet once a day for reconciliation purposes. That's a common example. Or you want to reconcile your production inventory with your trading inventory that is lying in the system. So, we can consume data from spreadsheets that can come from a folder or from an FTP site, right? So all this data then gets fed into the apps, which I will show you now on how the whole thing works, and then produces insights, right? So moving on from App Store to connectors, on to the topic of how it works. So when I take an example of how it works, I'm going to take the Position Mark to Market app. So every app has an intelligence engine, right? So you will see that there are a lot of help menu options that we've provided. You can click on this for app details. You can click on this for engine details and settings, right? Again, the whole purpose is to make it self-service, easy adoptability for our users. Now, what the Position Mark to Market app does is these are the templates that it needs for it to run the algorithm and the engine and to produce insights. And to this, we can map a lot of data. Now, the data doesn't need to come from one system, which is the power of the system. It can come from Eka's own TRM system or from spreadsheets or from other TRM systems. In fact, some of our customers have been able to get a consolidated view of the Position Mark to Market across their 6 geographical locations, even though each of the locations might have their own systems or their own commodities. But the whole consolidation use case works very well with a Position Mark to Market app here, right? So if you see the example here, we've got physical data, and this physical data can actually come in from multiple sources. So if you see, there's a quick mapping here. So I've got physical data, from soft commodities. I've got unpriced physicals. I have physical data from SAP. So I can map energy physical trades as well. So what this allows our implementation team and our consulting and implementation partners to do is you can just come here quickly, load the data and just do a quick drag and drop kind of a mapping interface here. And, just the system will actually sort of auto default wherever the template names and the field names match. And then you can quickly have, fill in the additional information and then get started, right? So far, just to summarize, a rich set of app stores, a flexible way of pulling in data from multiple systems, a quick mapping layer that allows us to, pull the external data in the raw form into the apps, and then the app runs the engine to produce insights. Right? So that's a quick way of how it works. Now, once the engine itself runs, it produces, depending on the engine, it will produce results. For example, there can be a Position Mark to Market output, there's a VAR output, there are risk limit outputs. Now, what the system allows us to do is, create what we call as insights. An insight could be, very business oriented. So if you see here, I have called this the energy risk reports, where at a glance, I have dragged and dropped a limit monitor which tells me how many breaches. I have 2 limit breaches and 6 not breached. I can look at the details of, where exactly there is a limit breach, by which commodity, what is the limit percentage utilization. Uh, these dashboards can be built very dynamically, in the sense, if I click on this NGL mix, it'll tell me exactly. It says, see right here, it says it's 128% overutilized from the limit that we had originally set. And against that, it tells me that what is the overall NGL physical position. It tells me what the PNL is, and it tells me that split by the instruments. Now, all these dashboards, they allow, users to drill down and see the individual records. And, you can drag and drop and design them in any form or fashion, right? So if I just right click this, and if I wanted to change the layout, you'll see it's very, very simple. You can drag and drop additional measures, and you can, change the layout. So we do have the entire visualization tools also built into the system, right? On this dashboard itself, like I said, the reason it's self-service and, easy to adopt as well. You see there's a little chat button here. So what we've also enabled, the idea is to bring about efficiency within the organization. And so we've added this collaboration feature, where if I look at this, I can easily pass a message saying, Prem, please look at, NGL positions. So within the dashboard itself, just to give some contextual messages. So what it helps to do is, if somebody else is on this dashboard, you can quickly see. You don't have to download, send an email, or call each other up. It just brings about efficiency in the way you're working across the organization. So that was a quick overview on how this whole thing works, along with, like I said, the self-service aspect, where, it comes with a standard set of dashboards and insights, but these can all be very easily changed by super users and business users themselves. On the dashboards, very quickly, the last thing I did want to mention, so when I edit any of these dashboards, we do have the complete roles and rights and security built in. Any data that is pulled into the system, any dashboard that is created, there is complete flexibility on which role will view it. So you can create as many roles as, depending on the organization. And this, again, all flexible to define. And you can decide who's going to edit it, who's going to delete it, who's going to view it, or if this view is going to be private to you. So just recently we were talking to a customer, and some of the individual users have created their private dashboards, but then the entire organization collaborates on common dashboards so that everybody is seeing the same thing. Right? Now, moving on, that was a introduction of the platform and, like I said, how it works. Now I'm moving on to the TRM side. Now, on the TRM side, again, there is a lot to show, but I just very quickly wanted to cover a few things. Prem already, mentioned we are truly a multi-commodity system. You might find a lot of, energy, ags, metals data. Some of these dashboards, mixed and matched, just to show you that we do handle the complete list of commodities. But what you'll notice in our physical contract is, we've spent considerable time redesigning this user interface just to make it very simple for our users, with a lot of feedback that we've got from the market. So if you see here, just to capture a contract very quickly, very basic details, you can see all of this. You can, of course, templatize, you can copy, you can clone a contract, you can copy from a template, etc. But if I take you to the quick item details, so every contract, you can have multiple uh, uh, commodities being delivered, multiple pricing periods, of course, multiple delivery schedules. But if I click on one of them and show you how it looks, some key aspects of the contract itself. So that's the commodity, that's the volume, you'll see the delivery period. We do handle all modes of transportation with a very comprehensive planning module, which I'll just show a glimpse of right now. But you will find a lot of them: truck, rail, barge, container, intermodal, which also handles pipeline and shipping and vessel as well. We do handle all types of pricing as well. So you'll find fixed, flat, and formula pricing as well. So here's an example of a formula price contract. I just quickly wanted to show you. Again, there's complete flexibility on what kind of formulas you want to build, quite comprehensive in nature. And once you build the formula out, you can also take a quick look at the price preview to see, what does the actual price stand as of today. Some of our customers use this feature, before raising an invoice, they'll actually see what the price is and then send the invoice out, right? So the system will also show you all the details based on the prices that have been loaded in the system, either through data connectors coming from ICE or other sources, or they can also be loaded through spreadsheets if there are some tariffs or any other prices that we want to maintain in the system. Right, so that's on the physical contract and the pricing part. From the contract, so if you see here, just before we leave this screen, again, you'll see we do handle all kinds of currencies. So just set this up in Canadian dollars, but then it splits out the price. It, fills in all the price details. So you know exactly what the final price is and how it's made up. So that was on the pricing part. So I'm moving on to the logistics. In the logistics, one a feature that was very well appreciated by our customers is a shipment planning calendar. So this is for our complete logistics suite. So whether it's truck, rail, barges, vessels, or pipeline, what we can do is, so this is our logistics operators can use this as a workbench. So here I can see either, pending shipments, or I can, look at a particular week or at a particular month. You can group it by transport mode and the volume. And the minute I say go, what this does is it brings up all the logistics that have been scheduled, or rather pending shipment and are beyond their due date, right? So it tells me that there is an inbound planning due for 6,000 to 25 tons. There's container inbound for 1,000 metric ton. So I can click on this, look at the details here. I can, one is click on this and look at, the details of this information, or I can also click on this and sort of reschedule here, right? So I can change the dates and I say, okay, this, I'm not going to expect this for another 10 days, etc. Now, what advantage this brings is, one is you get a workbench where you can, track what is getting delayed and what is on time and what is the status of all your logistics activities. Second is we can also provide, and we have done this in the past, is some dashboards that you can track delay days by carriers, you can track delay days by schedule, you can track delay date by pipeline location, etc. So you can, the number of insights you can create is actually quite vast because the granularity of data is present. So that's on the logistics module. Moving on to inventory, again, we do the whole WACOG calculation. So again, if you see here, this is a list of all the inventory. You can immediately see, what is the net volume in the inventory, what is the material cost, how much of it is contributed by, any processing cost or any transportation cost, etc. The system does a WACOG calculation. And more importantly, if I click on this link, I can see the details of the WACOG calculation in a, line by line. And this is a very important feature because when you're looking at the final WACOG numbers, it tells you that and GMR for us is just an execution activity for us, goods movement record. So every execution has a GMR number, but it does track with the GMR number and the final invoice number, line by line impact of how this WACOG was actually built in, with all the details on not only the volume, but also the cost of goods on the material cost on the, and as well as the secondary cost. So you can, it can be, treated like a detailed report. Now you can look at this, inventory by inventory or by pipeline location by pipeline location, or we can also make a big dashboard that combines everything and gives you some analysis on the same. Right. Lastly, on we do have a feature called, the activity manager. Again, one of our customers in North America uses this feature very heavily. So what happens is any activity in the system, can be, you can configure activities. So let me just go to this task monitor. Uh, you can say that, when a contract is created, within 3 days, it needs to be sent for signature. Within X number of days, it needs to be, you need to receive it back. So let me just show you a good example here. So you can set that up. You can also say that there are some activities which will be specific to invoices. There are activities that you can do in relation to planning itself, right? Now, once you define those, every time a contract is created or a schedule is created or an invoice is created, those activities will start getting defaulted onto this on the particular contract, and it'll get assigned to the person who has those roles. Now, there's complete workflow in the system to manage, what is the status of those activities. You can mark those activities as closed, or you can also reassign those activities to someone else if you're going on vacation. So with that activity manager, it's almost like your to-do list or your, task list for the day. And one of our customers in Canada on the grain side was telling us that, earlier they had to spend almost 2 to 3 hours reconciling, what was overdue and what was not. And today they're able to actually use that very effectively to make sure there is no task that is overdue, right? They're able to get a lot of advantages with that activity manager. Now, with that, I'll be moving in from the TRM into, let me just finish the last part here. So this is that task list that I was telling. So you'll be able to see the task list. You'll be able to see a complete audit log. You can generate documents, and you can also upload documents, additional documents onto the contract, right? So everything gets tracked in one place, and you can also manage your complete task list here, which gets defaulted. Moving on to some more analysis and app extensions before I open it up for questions. So like I said, you will see there are a lot of apps here, and we can get into some of these details at a later point in time. But two examples that I explicitly wanted to mention. So if you take the example of the Recon app, this is a good example of an app extension. In the sense, see, we've come across at least three scenarios for reconciliation, right? So one is the broker reconciliation, which is the most common one, which happens, anybody, any customer of ours who's hedging has this. So for example, FC Stone or, RJ O'Brien, some of these standard brokers, their file formats are sort of fixed. So we've taken those, configured in the system, and against the trades that are recorded in ICA or, the internal system for managing derivatives. Like I said, we are source agnostic, so we can actually compare and tell you, what is the value as per the broker statement versus what is being recorded in ECA or your alternate source system. So you can get a clear view of saying that, for example, in this FC Stone account, you can see there is a ACA's commissions that were recorded. If I just sum it up, is roughly around $8,000, whereas the brokers is only 100. So you can just quickly, expand and see where the underlying difference is there, and it, can get drill down to the trade number and say, 520 was recorded in ACA but is not recorded in with the broker. Right, so that's an example of reconciliation, which is a very common, app way of extending the app, is because there can be additional things that you may want to reconcile at a customer location. Like I said, we've also heard about very recently with one of our prospects, they wanted to reconcile what is recorded in their main Houston production terminal versus what is being recorded in their trading system on the inventory. So every day we are planning to build an inventory reconciliation report that highlights the difference, and then based on the difference, they can quickly do a write-on or a write-off in the trading inventory on the ECA side, right? So that brings about a huge business benefit. Similarly, there have been projects where people have also reconciled invoices between what's recorded in ECA versus what's recorded in an accounting system. So that's a natural way in which the reconciliation can be extended. There's another example that I did want to show you for an extension. But before we go into that, I just want built apps that some of them that I have set up here for the demo, but there are, there is scope for our partners and the implementation team and our customers to extend and create what we call as a My App. So just on, so for example, if I create an app extension and I create a standard insight or dashboard with some additional business rules, which I'm just going to highlight now, I can drag and drop and create my own apps, and that's the easiest way to extend this particular platform into adding more business specific My Apps. So let me quickly show you an example. So under this energy reports, we were working with a large biofuels manufacturer on the energy side, and we were talking about supply demand and whether we can see by plant how much has been utilized and what is the utilization percentage and what is the demand fulfill percentage, right? So I was thinking to myself, this would be a good example to show you as an app extension, because this was not part of the original requirement, but when we spoke to them, this was something that they needed because their production systems were not able to produce these dashboards. So what we did was, obviously a lot of data came from Eka, but a lot of data came from their production inventory systems, which you just uploaded in a spreadsheet. So we were able to produce a quick utilization by a plant sort of graphical view. Now here by plant, you can see, what's your forecasted supply demand versus actual supply demand, and as compared to the plant storage capacity. So you can just look at, forecasted supply versus actual supply. You can take this mix of plant storage out. So you can, do all this on the dashboards itself. But we were also able to create quite a detailed report in their exact format by plant storage. You can see by weeks. They wanted to see by week what was the storage capacity, forecasted supply, demand, and what was the storage utilization percentage, demand fulfill percentage, right? And how we've done that is just to now move on to the business layer that allows us to extend these apps extremely, in an easy way. Let me take you through one or two examples. So if I go here, go to collections. So we talked about, how data was coming into the system through multiple sources. So I'm going to take this example of DS movement. So this was, the original data that came in from Eka's system, which has all the planning data. So it has the actual supply and the actual, demand, correct? So we didn't have the forecasted demand and supply. But here we used our, this is again, sort of the most powerful thing, the business rule. We call these enrichments, but this allows the user to add business rules very easily. We use these for three broad things. One is to configure business rules to extend our apps by adding unlimited number of user defined fields. You can also use this, for business validation to say that, if the volumes are zero, error out these records, or if there's a certain criteria not being met, mark these records as in error state. So we've used it in 2 or 3 forms. But if you see here, this is where you can drag and drop or use some of our pre-built functions, including some get historical value or get current market price. A lot of utility functions are there, because of which you can add a lot of business fields. So here is an example on the plan date. Then there is, there's a forecasted demand, as you can see. So you can add unlimited number of business rules to extend these apps. So you can see plant, we've done some concatenation and pulled out the plant name from, the big name. Then uh, you can also see total demand coming in from, with some calculations, some mathematical calculations here. So plant capacity is coming in with a lookup, which means the plant capacity is stored in another, source of information. So we are looking up the plant capacity from there and pulling it in. So with some easy business rules configuration, we were able to create, an example of a supply demand dashboard, which, like I said, I can put it into a My App, or I can create a My App called, supply demand, for example, and, drag and drop that particular insight and put it. So I can say it's part of supply chain, it's part of energy, and I can say that, just drag and drop. I can go to this available insights filter and say supply demand, drag and drop this particular insight here, save and apply security. Okay. So with solution, it belongs to the App Store. Save and apply. I want to call this the supply demand. Like I said, I can, add my roles and rights. I've marked it as private. I save it, right? So when I go under these my apps, I will be able to add, if you see my supply demand app is now here, and it has the supply demand inventory app, right? So that was an example of how, the system already comes with a lot of pre-built insights, but then it is very easy to add more data sources. It's very easy to combine data sources with what is already present in the system, then add additional unlimited number of business rules and extend the framework, to service our customers very easily. So that was, sorry, my non-stop demo piece for the last 20, 25 minutes, and I'm ready for questions.